everybody, this is City Scrapper. Thank you so much for joining me today on my channel. Today I have a layout for you that was made with the March My Creative Scrapbook limited edition kit. For this layout, I'm using one of the 49 in market papers from the vintage Artistry Wedgewood collection that was included in this month's kit. I love the style of this piece of paper and I think it was perfect for the photo that I want to scrapbook. I do just want to warn you that there are some pieces of footage that came out very blurry and I did not include them in this video. So there are a few things that I did that I do not have footage of. So I just wanted that to be clear before you invested your time. I don't think that there's anything that there'd be any question about how I did it that is missing, but there are some parts where I had to explain what I did rather than show you. The very first thing that I did to this piece of paper was I took some black acrylic paint and I made a black border around the outside. I wanted it to be rough. I didn't want it to be a perfect border. I want this whole layout to be rather shabby looking. So I start by using my scissors and I distress the edges of all of the papers that I'm going to put on the background, all of the die cuts, all of the ephemera pieces. I just kind of go to town with my scissors. I'm distressing them inside and outside if need be. And the larger the piece that I'm using, the more I'm distressing it. I don't show you all of the distressing just because it's repetitive, but again, I take my scissors and I'm doing kind of a heavier distressing than usual. Once I'm done distressing the pieces, I take out a dauber and distress oxide in black soot, and I go around the edge of all of those same pieces that I just distressed, and I add some ink to the edges. And I, again, don't show you all of the inking because it's repetitive, but I do ink every single piece. The photo that I'm going to be using is of an abandoned building. And I wanted to, at the same time, highlight what's beautiful about it and also mirror the kind of rundown look of the building. I hope that that makes sense. But I wanted to choose all of my embellishments to go along with the mood of that photo. I didn't want to have too many like flowery kinds of embellishments on it. I did want to have some though because you'll see that there's some foliage in the photo. So I took these die cuts, and I'm so sorry, this is one of the dies in my collection that I don't have a manufacturer's name for. I wish I could tell you how you could get it, but I didn't save that information years ago. I cut 3 of them out in black. I embossed them in black embossing powder, and now I'm adding just a little bit of that slate blue color that is in the papers, and not over the whole thing, just enough to add a little bit of color to it. So this is not a super shiny embossing powder, the blue one that I just used. I wanted to go back in with a little bit of black. I feel like maybe I put a little bit too much blue, and with my finger I'm just kind of blending some of the places where the black and the blue meet, just so that it doesn't look like too sharp of an edge. I do the same thing to all 3 of those branches. Now I'm taking all of those pieces that I distressed and inked the edges of, and I'm arranging them all around the paper. My plan is, what I usually have been doing lately is I'm going to make one big unit that I can move around, so that this large cluster would be one that I could, take off the page, because I am going to do a little bit of mixed media in a little bit. So I'm layering all of those different pieces around. I love the way the 49 in market packs of ephemera have so many beautiful big and small elements that you can layer on top of each other. I'm popping up this one particular piece of ephemera that is an open book, And that's my photo right there. And the photo is of Letchworth Village, and I'll mention a little bit about that in a moment. I'm putting some clear gesso on the background because I want to put some splatters on the background, and I always like to add clear gesso when I'm going to put anything on the background, because if I should accidentally splatter something, it's so much easier to clean it up when there is clear gesso on the background. And especially with black splatters, I've been known to drop some large splatters, and I don't want to ruin the paper. Here I'm going in. I just wanted to make a couple of slightly larger dots without risking having a big mess. So I made them big myself. Here's the part where I lost the footage. You can see that this whole unit is assembled. The only things that I really moved around are some of the tickets. I added a butterfly, and I attached, I don't even know if I attached them, I definitely tucked in the floral pieces. And now I'm adding some butterflies all around the outside of the cluster. And you can see this particular one is inside the cluster, but I wanted to add some details outside of the cluster as well. And I love popping up the butterflies on some foam. And you can see here the butterflies are black, and I feel that the grays and the muted colors all go well with this photo of an abandoned building. So this is a photo of one of many, many buildings that make up a huge complex of buildings. It's called Letchworth Village. It was a mental health facility that was open for many decades, and then it finally closed in the 1990s. And my understanding is there were quite a few accusations of some improper practices that were going on there. And it looks like one day it just got shut down and nobody ever went back. There are a lot of pieces of furniture inside and a lot of, you can see paperwork strewn around through the windows. So it's actually really interesting to see how nature went back into these buildings and just took them over. Some of them were saved. There's a school that was made out of one of the larger, more beautiful buildings, but my daughter really liked the look of nature reclaiming Letchworth Village. Now I'm punching out some photo corners, I'm moving some of the tickets around, and I add a black enamel dot to each of the photo corners. I use an EK Success punch called a scalloped photo corner punch to cut out the photo corners. I decided to do a little bit more embossing. I am embossing this piece of black paper the same way that I embossed the leaves. I didn't want there to only be one dark black embellishment on the page, and I thought it would look good if I backed the openings in the movie reel with this black paper that I'm going to emboss. So I put some embossing powder. First I put the glue on, I put the embossing powder on, and then I go back in and I put another coat to join those two areas together. I didn't want to put the glue on top of the embossing powder before I put the heat on it because I was afraid that it would ruin my dauber. I do not have footage of me backing those openings, but I just cut out the pieces of paper that I had embossed and I glued them behind each of the openings in the die cut. Once I heat emboss the black embossing powder, I go back in with some more adhesive and I put the blue, the like slate blue color on top. And before I apply the heat, I just use my finger again and I smudge the edges so there wouldn't be any hard lines. And now you can see that the movie reel is magically backed with that embossed paper. As I've mentioned a few times, I really wanted to have a distressed look to this layout, so I went back in and I started using my fingers to further rip and distress the edges of a lot of the ephemera. I glued down that floral that was kind of waving around. And you can see I'm still going in, ripping some of the tickets and some of the edges, and I just like the way that that looks with the photo. I feel like it had to look a little shabby. After I distress everything, I do go back in with some white watered down acrylic paint, and I put some white splatters all over the background and the ephemera, and that is the last touch on this layout. Some close-ups are coming up. You can check out all of the beautiful kits that My Creative Scrapbook offers on their website, and the link to that is in the description box. I want to say thanks to everyone for watching this video, and I want to say thank you for all of the likes and all of the really lovely comments that many of you have left. They mean a lot to me. Thank you so much. I hope everybody has a super great day, and I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.